Hello, WordNerds! Happy Sunday! It is October 14th, and we are talking about preparing for NaNoWriMo. Someone is listening to music in my house. Apologies. So yeah, we're talking all about preparing for Nano. Let us know any Nano-related questions that you might have in the discussion section. If this is your first time and you are an aspiring author and you've never heard of NaNoWriMo before, it is National Novel Writing Month. It happens in November every year, and everyone gets together and they try to write 50,000 words, or the length of a short book, in 1 month, so 30 days. You can find out more if you go to NaNoWriMo.org, so NaNoWriMo.org. And so we're going to open up by just talking about how many NaNoWriMos we've participated in the past. So I've got Erin first. How many NaNoWriMos have you done, Erin?
I think like 5, maybe. I have to open up the actual website, but it's somewhere around 4 or 5.
I've got Emma next.
Yeah, this will be my 5th year doing it. 2014 was the first year.
Nice. Kelly.
This will be 13.
Oh my God.
So it's been a while.
Yeah, this will be my 7th, so not quite as long as Kelly, but also still kind of a long time. I hadn't realized it had been that long.
It's enough that at this point it would feel weird not doing it. Like,
yeah.
It just feels like a thing that happens every year now.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys won before? Winning being reaching 50,000. Obviously, everyone wins if you write anything.
Yeah, last year is the only year I've won.
I only won the first time I ever did it, and I've never won again.
I think I've won about half.
Yeah.
Like, there's no real pattern to it or anything for me. It's just sometimes it goes well, sometimes it barely goes.
Yeah. For me, I think it's been like every other year I've won, and I don't know why that is.
What is this year supposed to be?
It's supposed to be a win, but I'm doing it rebelliously. So we'll see how I keep track of it.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends.
The funny thing is, like, I know at this point that I'm not going to win pretty much always, but like I still do it just because of the community and stuff. That's why I like it.
For sure. Yeah, and if I do manage to like finish my draft insanely quickly and it's out with betas or something for that whole time, then maybe I'll write something different. We'll see. And then I might be able to hit the 50K more normally. I don't know. I love that feeling of winning.
Yeah, that's true. Being able to log that. But I'm almost always doing revisions. It seems like the last 3 years or something. It's been revisions during Nano.
Yeah.
I think the past 3 years I've been nanoing rebelliously. Because it's like I'm always like in the middle of a project already, and so I'm like, well, I'm just gonna keep writing this. Like I'm not gonna stop and start something new. So
I feel like that needs to be like a hashtag or a t-shirt or something.
It's not even that rebellious if I'm still like writing 50,000 new words, just because I'm not starting at the beginning of the book.
You rule breaker, Emma.
I know.
So we've said nanoing rebelliously a few times. If you've never done Nano before and never been on our channel when we have talked about NaNoWriMo, doing it rebelliously means working on a project, but not necessarily starting from page 1 and then writing 50,000 new words of a brand new project in the month. So we could mean continuing to work on a project that we've already started or revising one. Things that are still very much writing, but don't quite follow the more rigid, you start afresh and you just go for it. We've got people sharing how long they've been doing NaNoWriMo in the discussion section. I was wondering, since we've all kind of tried or done Nano a lot of times, has the way you prepare for Nano changed over the years, or is it roughly the same?
I feel like I used to prepare more. Like I want to prepare all the time, but in the last few years, it just feels like November keeps sneaking up on me. Like
Yeah.
it's, like I know it's coming. Everyone's talking about Preptober. Everyone's getting ready, but then all of a sudden it's November 1st and I've done nothing.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. Ever since I stopped like actually writing a new draft of something, and it's usually revisions, I don't prep anymore. It's just like jumping into it headlong.
That's how it's changed for me too. Because yeah, like I think the first 2 nanos I did, it was like, I'm going to start this new project. But now like, because I'm writing more than I was back then, like I'm always already in the middle of something. So I'm just like continuing work on that. So there's not really any prep for that.
And lately too, for me, the last few years, it's been, well, if I finish this project by Nano, then I can start something new. And so I'm kind of using it as like a deadline to really throw myself into the work in progress that I've usually been working on the entire year. So then I hit November 1st and it's like, oh my God, what do I do? How do I start? We have to do this now.
How do I write again?
Yeah.
I love that idea, actually. I'll probably do that next Nano and use that as like a deadline to finish whatever edits I'm doing. Because I just feel like that's my life. This is what my life is now. I just edit things. I don't write new things. What are you talking about? So it would be nice to do that next Nano.
I'm so excited to be able to edit again. I've been working on this stupid draft for so long, and I just want to revise. I want to have something that I can fix.
I just need to swap bodies with Megan.
Yeah.
Just so I can draft.
You finish
something.
my draft, I'll edit yours.
Okay, deal. Need a Freaky Friday thing.
Yeah.
Here. Yeah. Oh my God.
Hello to Rachel.
Yes, hello to Rachel.
I made it. Sorry,
Public
transit was being frustrating because it's Sunday and all the buses just decide when they show up. They don't pay attention to schedules.
Slackers.
And I am now home.
Yay. So this is a good, someone said that they weren't sure if they should do NaNoWriMo. So how do you decide if doing NaNoWriMo is a good thing for you, if you want to participate in it at all?
My advice is the same every year. Do it in whatever sense makes sense for you, but you'll always end up writing more than you would otherwise. Just getting that enthusiasm of the Nano community, and whether it's just like writing your essays for school or finishing a project or editing, even just participating in spirit, even if you're not like setting a goal. And I'd make an account and like look at the forums and just engage with Nano, but it's always beneficial, at least for me.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to be doing any writing in November, you might as well sign up for Nano anyway. Like, that's how I am. Like, I'm not really planning on writing 50,000 words next month because it's going to be the end of the semester. I'm going to have projects due, but like, I'm still going to sign up and I'm still going to track however much I write during the month just to like see and to be part of the community, like Kelly said. So
somebody was mentioning in the comments that like they're just trying to hit 10K, right? Like that's a good goal, and then you can still see your word count going up, and you can still see it hit that 10K and be like, hey, I did my own goal, you know? So I think that's a great idea.
And I do, I generally like to go for the 50K because, like I mentioned before, I'll usually spend the entire year working on one book and then get a whole draft done in November of something else. And the weird thing is, like, fast or slow, my drafts are just as messy. Like, there's still a million things to fix. And so I really like, for me, November is a time to just be like, screw it. I'm going to write garbage words, and they're just all going to get out there, and everyone is screaming at the same time. We're all having the same writing existential crisis and panicking. And just that whole community is incredible.
And sometimes even if you're not super getting into the community, just like actually tracking how many words you're writing and seeing that graph go up can be motivation to do more.
The graph.
I just like entering my words into something at the end of the day and being like, hey, this is how much I did, and here's the word count going up. It's really satisfying.
Yeah, as long as you like if you're not going for the 50K, you let yourself accept that your graph is not going to look like what they set up the graph to do. When you set your target for whatever it is and see it go up, just being aware of what you're writing can make a big difference sometimes.
We had a question from Sabra. Does anyone use a bullet journal to plan for Nano?
I would if I was planning for Nano at all. Like I use my iPad as a digital bullet journal now. I think she asked earlier if anyone had done a video on it. I think I did one on my old bullet journal, but I could do one on my digital one. But maybe I'll have some sort of like goal tracker in there as well, just because I love being able to check things off and see what I've done.
Yeah.
Bullet journals are great for little graphs and tracking things and checking things.
I have a regular journal, but I'm not fancy enough to do a bullet journal.
Yeah.
A writing journal, but
I would make a line crooked and be like, well, I have to trash the whole journal now. I gotta buy a new one.
That is why I love the digital one. Like I've seen people do it on just like Photoshop or whatever, because then you can just make the lines and erase things. And
I definitely, the longer I've been using the bullet journal, the less fancy I've gotten about it. Like originally, yeah, I'd draw the lines with like a ruler and like add decorations. And now I'm like literally like, let me make a list of things I need to do today. That's all I'm putting in here. Like it's gotten less and less detailed as I go.
That's totally why bullet journals got popular, that you don't have to put any work into it at all. That it's, if you want it to be super pretty, great, but if that's going to stress you out, you could just buy an already pre-made journal.
Yeah. I want to try. Do you guys follow Lily Mead on Twitter? She's releasing a line of like writing planners and bullet journals that I was just like drooling over the other day. I'm going to find a link and put it in the discussion.
Oh, yes,
They're like releasing soon. I think hopefully in time for like November or December, I think is the plan.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
I definitely buy a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm going to find the link to that. We had another question while I'm finding that. Dakota asked, I haven't written a thing in 4 years. Is it a bad idea to go from nothing to trying to do NaNoWriMo?
No, you definitely wouldn't be the first person to do that.
That was like 100% how I started writing seriously again, was November 2012. I was like, what is this thing called NaNoWriMo? I'm doing it. And that was like my first completed draft was NaNoWriMo 2012. Like just went for it. And it was amazing. The draft was terrible, but the experience was amazing.
And that is where taking time to do a little prep work before November can kind of ease you in. Like if you already know even just your first chapter, so you can start writing right at midnight on November 1st, whatever, and really get that momentum going. Just kind of knowing where you're going will make it easier to jump in and maybe even write a whole book in November.
I think as long as you're not putting like a lot of undue pressure on yourself and stressing yourself out, if it works for you, I think you'll find out pretty quick. And if it doesn't, then you don't have to force yourself to do it, you know? Just go at your own pace. Any writing done is good writing if you haven't written in 4 years, honestly.
For sure.
And like your document isn't going to like delete itself on November 31st or November 30th. If you haven't like finished it, like you can keep writing. So.
That would be a terrible design if Nano did that.
Self-destruct.
You like hit 49,000 words, everything just explodes.
They like team up with Write or Die.
Yeah.
No.
Really raise the stakes.
We come just like destroy your computer if you haven't reached a certain point. Motivational.
Yeah. This is a really interesting question. A little more debatey, but Jody asked, do you think Camp Nano is better than NaNoWriMo because there's less pressure?
It doesn't have the little box thing, does it? To put in your word count, or does it?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, it does? Oh, okay. Never mind then.
I like the like environment of NaNoWriMo because like so many people are doing it and it's like a really big deal. But like I feel like I do better during Camp Nano.
Really? Yeah, I feel like I do better during Nano because I feel like more people are watching me. Like I can't fail. People care about this. They can see my profile. Whereas with Camp Nano, like they only see your profile if they have your information or are in a cabin with you. And the public shame really works for me.
And on either one, the pressure is really only what you make of it, because you can set a higher goal than 50,000 words during camp if you want to, and you can nano rebelliously. Like I like nano, like official November nano, just for like it feels like I'm a part of something, whereas camp for me feels a bit more goal targeted. I think like it's because I can set a realistic goal and I can lower the goal if it's not going well, and it's just kind of it's good, but it's not nano.
Yeah. We had a question from B. Marie M. How do you guys outline? Scrivener, Post-its, Excel?
Does anyone outline on Excel?
I actually recently started doing that.
Oh, is it good?
Yeah, I've been using Google Sheets for it, and it's actually for the project that I'm already like part of the way into. Like I can't like outline before I start, but like after I've written a little bit of it, I can. So
I revise using it.
yeah, so I'm like kind of
do
using it
this?
to keep track
I
of
don't know
things.
if I've heard of this. Do you like do scene by scene in a graph, or like what do you do?
What I'm doing is like down the side, it's like the different scenes, and then across the top, it's like different like elements that I want to make sure I'm like keeping track of. So like the main plot and like some of the subplots, so that I can kind of put like how I'm moving those things along, or like what clues I've put into like the twist and stuff. Yeah.
I always beautiful mind it and just have like a ton of postcards and sticky notes and wall charts, and it's usually chaos, and I hate myself by the end of it, and then I have to like sort out my plotting before I can write. And it's the same with revisions, although I use Susan Denard's revisions process. So
well, like
chaos.
I've made this spreadsheet, but also it's also still chaos, because the thing is that the spreadsheet is one of like 6 ways that I've like written out the like I do it in multiple places.
I do that too.
I've done like the spreadsheet, I have it like written by hand, I have it like typed out, like I've done it in different ways to like conceptualize it in different ways.
I feel like part of it is wrapping your mind around things, if that makes sense. Yeah, because like I do this exact same thing with my revisions right now. It's almost like my mind is like trying to grasp what I'm going to do, and it takes me writing things out like 3 or 4 times to be like, okay, these are my revisions, these are the direction I want to go in, and I just had to write out like 6 sets of note cards, which is very annoying, but
100%.
That's what you have to
my
do.
brain is like so scattered thinking about it all that I have to put it down, but I have to do it multiple times.
Same.
I'm
I'm glad I'm not alone.
No, you're not. No, I feel like such a mess because like, all my notes are in so many different places.
I always think of that GIF that's like the dog floating in space. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's me like every time I revise. It doesn't matter how many manuscripts.
See, that's why when I'm revising, I like to use the Excel sheet, because I use it at the end and use it to bring everything in at once. So I did a video about this called the book skeleton, based on Kit Grant's book skeleton method. And I have actually, like on it, there's a sheet that if you are a hardcore outliner and you want something that will help you figure out everything, you could definitely try downloading that worksheet. I just put a link in the discussion section, but I'll use it and be like, okay, here's what happens in every scene. Here's the characters in each scene. Where's the setting? Did anyone get injured? What are the subplots? Did I include those right? Like, are they all lining up? Am I forgetting anything? It would be too rigid of an outline for me personally for a first draft, but at the tail end, I really like having it all there so I can be like, oh, look at all these plot holes I thought I'd fixed.
Yeah, I'm hoping like with the spreadsheet I started, and I haven't even like I've mostly done like the scenes I've already written plus like the next few, and then just keep doing it as I like figure out what's coming next. And then I want like after I finish the draft to like put even more columns, like you're saying, like to keep track of even more things. Like right now it's literally just like the main plot, whose point of view it's in, like how I develop any characters within it, what clues I have to the twist. Like it's like really basic things. Like the romance subplot, like what happens with that. So
nice. We had a question from Katya. How much time do you spend planning for Nano? In the cases where we don't jump right in, because we've already kind of talked about those.
If I'm like starting a new project, I think in the past, like I don't go like super hardcore about planning it, but I also don't super hardcore outline before I write either. But like I'll just kind of spend like basically the whole month before just like writing down any ideas I have and like kind of figuring out the major structure of the story.
This year, it's looking like it's going to be about 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like when I know what the idea is going to be the month before, giving it that whole month to let it simmer and just like really like let the ideas come as they come rather than trying to force it. We had a question from Helen. How much detail do you guys put into your plotting for Nano? Do you just do the main plot? Do you try and work out subplots as well?
I will try to work out subplots. Like if I can get those figured out ahead of time, it will definitely make things run a bit smoother for me. It's when I don't know what's happening with all of the subplots that I really struggle to keep going. That I feel like this is just a mess. I'm gonna have to deal with it later. Why bother? So.
Mm-hmm.
I plot about the same amount I do for any book. Like I don't feel like it changes based on if it's Nano or something else for me.
Yeah, same.
Kind of like figuring out the major stuff and kind of like a general idea. Maybe like making a list of like possible things that could happen in the story just to give me ideas if I get stuck. But
yeah. Yeah, I usually like to come up with the beginning and the end, maybe like one big plot twist, and I'll usually write down what I think the subplots are going to be, but then in my draft while I'm doing Nano, it's usually like, here's this chapter where we're looking at the main plot. Here's this chapter that only handles the subplot.
Yeah, I usually spend a ridiculous amount of time plotting out every story, so it's pretty much the same. If I was doing Nano, not with revisions, it would probably be most of this month of October that I would be plotting things. Also, because it just takes a lot of time for me to, once I have that idea, it's usually something really random and not attached to any characters or like specific plot. It's like, ooh, rocks that turn you into a monster. Cool. Okay, that's not a plot or any characters. So I need to expand on that. So it takes a really long time for me to generate ideas. So it'd be like all of October for me.
And I usually think that concept is a full story until I start trying to work it out. I'm like, yeah, I've got a whole book idea. And then I'm like, oh, no, I don't.
No, I don't.
A world
Oh, no,
and nothing
this
else.
is chapter 1.
There's
one
zero
scene.
direction. Cool.
All I've got is these two people who hate each other and then like each other by the end. That is not a plot.
And
It's not a whole book. And usually for me, I'm like, and then it's super gay. I don't really know what else. That should do it, right?
There's like a lineup of Post-it notes. That's the plot, and then it just stops in the middle. It's like super gay from here on out.
Yay! That's not a plot point, Erin.
We had a question from Flautist58. Do you guys find yourself somewhere different on the sliding scale of pantser to plotter as you grow as a writer? Like, has it changed for you?
I think so. It's always changing.
So how would you say it's progressed over time for you?
More plotting. Well, usually because I have that, like I said, that really tiny glimmer of an idea. And then usually I just have to sit down and brainstorm an actual book to go with it. So that some people are like, oh, the characters just came into my head fully formed and this was their world. And I'm like, yeah, that never happens for
Cool.
me.
How did you make that happen?
Yeah. J.K. Rowling or whatever. Oh, I was on the train and Harry Potter just walked into my head. I was like, well, good for you. It doesn't happen for me that way.
Yeah, I've just gotten better at plotting, I think. Like I understand how it works better than I did when I started. Like I used to think that I needed to know like every single scene and like so then I would just never plot because I was like, I can't figure all of that out before I write it.
Mhm.
I've gotten
I
better at
think,
figuring
like,
out how to like do structure and stuff.
Same. Yeah. And I think I like figured out a way to like work with a plot outline, but not stay so rigidly to it. And allow myself to stray from it. And it works better that way, I think.
See, I'm a little bit the opposite of you, Erin. I started out hardcore plotting, and like the longer I've written, I've slowly learned how to chill. Because I would get like so wrapped up in the plot that it was like, well, I am writing the book like this, and it cannot deviate.
Yeah, I
I
tried
feel like-
so hard to like hardcore plot that I never started a book. You know, or like I wouldn't get past like the first couple chapters because I'd be like, I don't know every single little thing. And so I've like learned to kind of like chill a little bit and be like, I don't need to know every little thing.
Yeah, I think it's important like to be able to have that flexibility, especially if a character sort of does something that surprises you and then you're like, okay, I can work with this and have a really cool plot twist later or something, right? And if you don't have room for that and you're too rigid and sticking to your plot, it kind of, your book comes off as kind of mechanical and forced in certain, because the readers are going, well, it doesn't make sense for this character now to do this. That's the other thing I think for me is I don't know my character until I've written about one draft at least. And so some of the decisions I was going to have them making then don't make sense for later drafts. So that has to change too.
Yeah.
I'm like what you were saying, I'm a little bit better with structure now, because before, like I've said this before, I'm absolutely terrible with subplots. So it would be like one chapter is stuff that needs to happen. Next chapter is just pure subplot, and then the next chapter is these other two characters, and then the next chapter is just subplot, and like then later I'm like, oh man, there was that thing that I was supposed to add as a subplot. I completely forgot about that. Well, I guess it'll just come up now. So a little better with maneuvering some things around.
Yeah. And when I first started writing and stuck to the plot so rigidly, I would remember that thing and be like, well, I'll just have to remember it after I finish the book.
Yes.
Which is so hard to fix. Like a lot of those books I ended up just not even trying to fix because it was so bad.
Yeah. And then like trying to shoehorn in scenes that aren't necessarily authentic or things that just don't necessarily make sense for the version of the book, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot of that can like lead to things that feel a little bit too like author and plot driven rather than character driven, because it just kind of seems like the author's just kind of like pushing the characters in the direction that they need to go for the plot and for the story to happen the way they want to. I read something recently that I felt that way about, but I don't remember what it was. There was some book where I was like, I feel like things are just happening, like, and like the character was making decisions because it was the decision they needed to make and not like the decision they actually would make. Which is like a balance to find, because you can't have your character just being like, I'm just going to go hide in a closet for the rest of eternity. Because I don't
Which is what I would do if the story started happening to
if
me.
you were a character in a book. It'd be a really boring book. I would just hide and cry.
No.
But yeah, no, I agree. You need to have the characters making decisions that make sense for their motivation and their personality. And not just because this is the series of events that need to happen.
Okay, so whether prepping for Nano or just prepping to write any book, how much of your character do you figure out before you start writing?
Never enough.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I
They're
usually
gay?
start
They're
writing.
all gay.
They're all gay. Done. I feel like
That's definitely a personality, Erin.
What? Why not?
I always I never know. Like I'll maybe know like one thing or like something I want them to say or like a vague idea of like how their character's going to develop from like good to bad or bad to good, but like I never know anything about them until I start writing.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Like it takes a full draft sometimes, or I think I know and then I don't. They turn out totally differently.
I always know, or at least think I know, like the arc I want their character to take and like the development, but I never know like the character well enough. That's always the problem I run into once I start writing it. I'm like, oh, I don't know who this person is. They're all over the place.
Yeah. I often have issues with characters. Like often my main characters, sometimes they don't necessarily have like a proper arc. And then I'll have to go back in and sort of put that arc in so that it makes sense.
I always feel like I'm not very subtle when it comes to character arcs, because like there's a couple characters, especially with one book that I was working on, where I didn't really know how to I didn't know how to subtly make it, so it would just be like they're this way And I had one epiphany and now they're this way because I don't know how to like work it in.
Hard.
So yeah, so like every character of mine, I'm just like, they're like this for now until they prove to me otherwise.
So my problem is in my first draft, like I always know what character arc I want them to have, but I never execute it in the first draft because in the first draft I feel like I'm just very focused on like the plot and figuring out the story. And so in the first draft, there's a lot of telling in my character arc. It's like, and she realized this, like, you know, like it's very like on the nose, like her being like, oh, I learned this thing.
Yeah.
It's like, no. Which actually, I think Susan Denard did a newsletter recently about like telling in character arcs and character development, and I was like, oh my god, this is me.
I have to read that. I feel like it's probably me too, especially for first draft, because I almost always have this thing where, and usually it's like an editor or agent that points it out, because I'm usually blind to it because it is one of my weaknesses where I realize I go back and I'm like, the motivation is there, but it's either doesn't quite make sense anymore by the time the draft is finished, or it's not, she's not directing her decisions the way she should be with that particular motivation, or isn't fully followed through. That's what I'm trying to fix right now, is that my character has a motivation, but her arc isn't, like, she hasn't changed enough by the end of the story. So I'm trying to fix that. So yeah.
Yeah, when I'm gearing up to write a character, keeping in mind that it's the first draft is always going to be getting to know the character too, I usually try to come up with like at least what they want, like what their motivations are, like you were saying, and then like what happens if they don't get it, and like is their biggest fear not getting it, or is it something that's like tangential to that? And then we talk about this all the time, this super wise thing Kelly said.
I was going to say that.
Where make your character want two things and then have to choose one of them at the end of the book.
Sacrifice one of them in order to get the other one. Yeah. I literally, I'm like, Kelly, because I literally always do this now every single time. Like, literally, that's what I'm trying to do with my one right now, is that she doesn't want to use her power because she's scared of it, but she has to use her power to break her friends out of the kind of jail situation that they're in. Because that becomes her main goal. But again, like Emma was saying, I have not executed that properly so that it becomes obvious in the end that her character arc is her goal goes from one thing to another thing, right? So I need to go back and strengthen that and make it more, obvious, but not, telling the reader that this is happening. So it's hard. Writing is hard, you guys.
Yes.
Why do I do?
I'm never getting it right.
So if you're planning on, like, if you're not a planner, plotter, like that's not really your thing, is there anything that you should be doing, do you guys think, to prepare for NaNoWriMo?
If you're like a
pantser?
If you're a pantser, yeah.
Telling your friends that you're not going to talk to them for a month.
And I still think, like, even if you're a pantser, you're still going to do like some amount of preparation, even if it's just like writing down ideas you have about the story. Like, obviously you have some sort of idea. It's not just like, I don't know, I'm going to write some words. Like, hopefully that's not it. Like, even if it's just writing down like, oh, these are some scenes that would be fun to include, or like, here's some things about a character or something. Like, just kind of like writing down any ideas, just thinking about the story, basically. Like, listen to some music and think about it and just write down any ideas that come.
Yeah, well, I think people think that when you say, are you a plotter or pantser, it's like two very extremes of like, I'm going to plot every detail and every single scene down to the nitty gritty dialogue. And it's just like, I'm definitely a pantser, like 100%. But I still have like, I know who the people are and like where the story's going, so I have a general gist of where I'm going with it. But most of the time I'm like, well, I want them to end up over here. So I guess we're just going to see how that happens. And then as I'm writing, I'm like, oh, this guy can like ask them right now to do the thing. Perfect. All right, done. Put that in there.
Yeah, I think I talked in a recent video about like one of the things you can do to prepare for the month is just like writing down, like things you're excited for, things you want to include, like just stuff like that, so that like later if you get stuck and you don't know what should come next, which like is a problem with pantsing sometimes, that like you're like, what happens next? I don't know. You can like look at that list and be like, oh yeah, I wanted to write like something with some like romantic tension or something, and that can give you an idea. hopefully.
Yeah. I also like to, in October, start to gear up with like Pinterest pages and Spotify playlists and stuff, because those things take time to curate. And one of the things I like about Pinterest is that when I'm making the board, I don't have to know the plot of my book to know, like, oh, this has a feel that I like and I want to write something that feels like this image. And so just having a board with like a bunch of images like that evoke these feels in me, and being able to look at that later in the month can be really useful. Same with having a playlist, just of like, oh, I feel like this song has a feel that I want my book to have. We had a question from James. What genre are you guys writing in this NaNoWriMo?
Fantasy, always fantasy.
Always fantasy.
Same.
Is there even another genre?
I think
What
I'm
is
doing
it?
urban fantasy.
Ooh.
I actually might
Wow.
be doing if I finish my current thing that I have to finish, then I'll also be doing kind of an urban fantasy, which
Wow, you wild cards.
long time.
You're really mixing it up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't go too wild. Like, I
Right.
don't even know you anymore.
We had a question from random person. What if your book has the same title / has a similar plot to another book and you have no idea what to do in that case? I'm scared that will happen and I'll have to trash the whole book.
I
Well, it's always
wouldn't
gonna-
worry about that.
It's always going to be different because it's your writing, and you never
Yeah,
know
yeah.
what's going to happen halfway through. It's going to definitely turn into something else, no matter how close you think it is going to be. Plus, there's
No way
plenty,
anyone
there's plenty
can
of
know
books out
anything
there that are
about
similar.
that. Yeah. And like you could tell 10 different people to write a story about a kid going to wizard school and you'd get 10 totally different stories. Maybe not now the wizard school one, but
Yes, Wizard School. Always
but
Wizard
even
School.
then there are 10 different stories already for sure about kids going to wizard school. For sure.
Like, I've written a book that, in my opinion, like feels super derivative, and like I would never publish it in its current form because like it feels too close to the thing that inspired it. But like, I don't regret writing it. Like, I still learned from writing it, and like there's things about it I love that I could use in other things. So like, even if it does end up being too much like something else, you still got experience writing something.
And obviously publishing is very far out, but as far as publishing is concerned, if you write a book that has the same title or is very like has some similar plot points to another book and you didn't realize it when you wrote it and you find this out later, like if you're hoping to traditionally publish, it's going to be years before your book comes out. Even if it sells immediately after you finish revising it and start sending it to agents, it will be years before your book is out. And unfortunately, as is the case with most books, like it will have generally been forgotten by then. And then if you're self-publishing, it's a great comp title.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I would
with
say,
titles, that's
Wait.
an easy Google. So
Yeah,
I would
I'm
say
sorry.
with, like,
I just
having a
remembered something, but isn't Renee Allier, who did Flame in the Mist and Wrath in the Dawn, she's gonna be writing a vampire story, and I'm like,
Vampires in New
I'm
Orleans.
ready
very
for
excited.
vampires to come back.
Yeah.
see, like everyone's always, oh, I want to write a vampire story, and I don't know if people are gonna like it or whatever. I don't think it's gonna sell, and like Renee Allier just did it, so vampires are ready to come back, so you can write whatever the heck you want.
Well, and the funny part too is this on the very same topic. It's the one she's doing is very similar to Elise Arden. Where is she has this book series, and it's very similar along the same lines with like vampires, and this one also has
vampires are making a
witches. It's such a good series. It's so good. But it's going to be different enough that it's not an issue, and that audience is probably going to read both of those authors, right? Like we like dark, spooky things with vampires and witches. Like, I'm gonna read both series. The only time you run into that is, say, like you're an author, you're going on submission, and you might get an imprint where the editor says, I already bought a similar book. In which case that happens all the time. It's going to happen all the time, and you'll sell it to someone else. you know, so it's not a big deal.
Mhm.
So, like,
And there's always. Oh, go ahead.
I say on the title thing, like having the same title as another book, like I would only worry about it if it's like a really unique title. Like I can't even think of one right now, but
You
like
can't name it like Daughter of Smoke and Bone.
For
Yeah.
example, when I first was preparing to go on sub with my agent, my book was called Court of Glittering Crimson, and there were a lot of Court of books coming out at the time, so we changed the title so that it wouldn't be too similar.
but like if it's like something, like Daughter of Smoke and Bone that's like very specific and you had that exact title, like that's a little like But if you like wrote a book called like Shiver, which like Maggie Stiefvater has a book called Shiver, but like it's one word, like it's not that unique of a title, you know, like it'll probably be okay having another book with that title. Or if it's like really famous, like you can't write a book called The Hunger Games. Or you can't publish a book called Twilight, like nobody in YA is gonna buy that. But yeah, other than that, there's only so many words in the English language that you can combine together to make a title. So there's books out there that have the same titles.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's always going to be that one person who's like, oh, you wrote a book about a vampire? Have you considered that it's identical to Twilight? Because that one also has a vampire in it.
Any book you write, someone's going to be like, this sounds exactly like this one book that actually only has like one thing in common.
That's very true. Yeah.
So you
and also
you.
Yeah, and it really does, especially if you're at a point where you're just starting to perfect your craft and you're enjoying writing and you're not necessarily pursuing traditional publishing at this time yet. It's definitely not something to worry about. Like, just enjoy yourself, you know, learn your craft, write whatever you want, write what you're passionate about, and just definitely don't worry about that. So.
I think usually as a writer, like after you've written something, you'll like realize if it's too close to something else.
That's why it's important to read widely.
You
know,
for sure. We had a question from Marshmallow Cass. Any suggestions on how to catch up, or should I just keep on going and when Nano comes along, start writing and enhance the last of it? Thank you. So I'm assuming you mean like catch up, finish up what you're working on in time for Nano? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, Marshmallow Cass had an earlier comment about, didn't realize I wanted 31 chapters in my next book, so I'm plotting a chapter each day.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
But I'm behind. So how to catch up on that.
Okay, yeah. Catching up on your plotting.
I mean, you could keep plotting those chapters as you write during Nano. They'll give you more to do, but you could like, you know, write your 1,600 words and plot a chapter like each day, and then you'll definitely have them finished by the time you get to it.
And if you keep going at a chapter a day until then, you'll still have a good chunk that you'll know where your story's headed.
And honestly, like, that could be nice, being able to tinker with things once you've already started the book. I know for me personally, like, I prefer to plot a few chapters and then write those chapters and then plot a few more chapters. Still kind of following like the broad plot that I've come up with, but giving myself that wiggle room in between to adjust as I go works quite well for me. And it also helps a lot too, because I don't know if this happens to you guys, but I come to a grinding halt in the middle of the book where it's like, I have written 7 chapters where people are just talking in rooms, and now I need to sit down and figure out what the end of this book is, or I'm just going to fall to pieces. We had a question up higher. Where did it go? From N. Griswold. Are you reading any writing craft books this month? Is anyone reading any good writing craft books?
I've been slowly making my way through Damn Fine Story by Chuck Wendig for a couple of months now, and I'm hoping to finish it by this month.
I've been listening to a lot of First Draft podcast. I've listened to enough of it to like fill up a whole book. So.
We had a question from random person. Basically, are any of y'all's published books, Nano books?
I don't even know.
I'm sure at least one of Kelly's books was written during Nano.
Yeah.
Probably.
Kelly has so many books.
And she's done so much Nano, so like the crossover.
Yeah, odds are.
I don't think so, actually. It might have been like half of one. I think I may have done half of Bryony during one Nano, but I can't quite remember because I only ever do like half a book during Nano.
My impression of Erin's Nanos has always been like that she like starts something and then she's like, oh, I don't actually want to write this book. And then changes to something else.
That's essentially it.
Like, it may have only happened one time, but I feel like it's happened multiple times.
No, multiple times.
You're like, actually, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Not a book
That's essentially what it is, because I have to really, like, I made that video about, like, letting my ideas steep, because I have to do that. I have to sit on an idea for, like, a really long time until I'm like, yes, I'm 100% committed to you. Otherwise, I'm like, oh, no, this other shiny idea is better. So, yes, I'm definitely guilty of that. So, yeah, I probably wrote, like, something else, and then the first half of Bryony during one, probably.
That actually kind of leads into one of the questions I had prepared, which was, if you don't have an idea already in mind, how do you choose which idea you're going to work on for NaNoWriMo?
Apparently.
Yeah, don't pay attention to Erin.
No, I'm not giving any advice for this.
I think for Nano, like, there's two things that you have to look at. And I think I've said this before in general about choosing what to write next, but like it needs to be something that you're like really excited about because you're going to be writing a lot. And like Erin's example, if you realize you really don't like this book, like, you're not going to keep writing it. But also, like, it should be something that you know a decent amount of information about. Like if it's just like a very vague concept and it's like October 31st and you're like, still all I know is that like it's about like a dragon.
Magic rocks.
Yeah, or magic rocks. And you're like, I don't know anything else. But there's like another idea that you're like equally excited about that you know more about. It's probably a good one too.
Yeah, even if you're slightly less excited about that one.
Yeah.
If you know more about it, let the really exciting one steep.
Yeah.
Get to work on the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. We had a question from Danny. Has anyone done reverse Nano or nanoed rebelliously by starting early?
What is reverse Nano? Is that when you delete 50,000 words?
That should be what reverse Nano is.
I think there's it says it's basically where you start out with a really large word count goal on the first day, and then by the end of the month, you only have like one word.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you like
that is so cool, but so intimidating to me.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah, I think if you Google reverse Nano, you can find like the goal chart or whatever.
Wait, so it is deleting words?
No, it's like this. You're aiming for 50K, but instead of an even amount over every day, you're starting with a really high goal and doing less every day. So, which makes a lot of sense. Like, at the beginning is when you're like super pumped to do all the things, and by the end of the month, you're like, So that's a really cool idea.
Yeah, and so then on the last day, it's like you have one word to write to hit the goal.
I thought it was legitimately like deleting a crap ton of words, and I'm like, I need reverse Nano. I'm such an overwriter.
No, maybe Nano. I would love to try it sometime. This Nano, I am rebelliously revising most likely. So
I'm watching The Flash right now on Netflix, so all I can think of is the reverse Flash. Reverse Nano is the evil version, right?
Trying to find the calendar because I'm curious what they start with. Oh, 3,346.
Oh, that's not even
that is not that bad.
No, that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, and you're
That's like a really long essay.
Yeah.
And then you're writing less than 1,000 for 9 days at the end. Yeah.
Good idea.
That is really smart. So, like, by the time American Thanksgiving hits, you have a way lesser goal to hit every day.
Smart.
Really
so all about
cool.
tricking the brain.
Good idea.
We had a question from James. Would you guys ever handwrite a nano draft, or do you prefer just typing it out?
I hand wrote like half of Bryony for some reason.
It
That
sounds
like
great in
hand cramp
theory,
central.
but yeah.
That's why I
The
stopped,
reality
I
is
think.
just me like throwing that in a drawer and never looking at it again. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
The reality is,
Once
like,
you have to
after a
copy
few
it back.
pages, it would just be like scribbles. Like, you wouldn't be able to read any of it because my hand would be so tired.
Mine is actually like the first half of Brownie was handwritten. Like that stayed in the book, but it was definitely like I wrote half of it and then was like, okay, I'm not doing this again. Because it would be like my hand is a useless claw for the rest of the day.
I've definitely had some first drafts where I've like written parts of it by hand, but it hasn't been like the whole first half or anything. It's just been like randomly, like when I like was feeling stuck, I would just start writing by hand, and so I had like whole like chapters that were written by hand, but never the whole thing.
I have been looking into, on the flip side of that, trying to get into using the speech to text things. I know Kelly is a professional at that. But having had a baby recently, I think being able to like say the words instead of needing to be like chained to a computer typing it, or like having a notebook in one hand and a baby in the other and just like praying for the best. It would definitely be very nice to be able to just like keep going, talk creepy things, and hope that it doesn't scar my child.
I cannot recommend dictating enough. I don't do it as much as I want to, because I don't know. Then there are little errors and stuff, but the more you do it, the better the program is at like figuring out your stuff. But I talk really fast, so I speak much more quickly than I type, but also being able to get up and move around. And it's just, and I get like achy hands. So not having to use them is super helpful.
Mm-hmm. We had a question from N. Griswold. What's in your Nano survival kit? I've got some fuzzy socks, chocolate, a new notebook, and pens. I want to add more things, but can't think of anything else. Also, tea suggestions, please.
Ooh,
Tea suggestions? Oh.
I like black teas, but so this is only if you like black teas, but Lady Grey is the one I've been drinking obsessively right now. But also, of course, the English breakfast, Earl Grey, Irish breakfast tea,
Pumpkin chai.
fancy.
Pumpkin chai. Or mango green tea.
That sounds good.
Aaron
like
always
mint
makes fun of
green
my
tea.
teas because they're less traditional. But I really like, there's a s'more black tea from Citizen Tea that I love. That I like
What?
marshmallow.
Does it have
and,
sprinkles
like,
in it?
Doesn't have sprinkles.
Marshmallows.
Okay.
In it. David's tea used to have some with sprinkles in it. And there's also some Tetley for like herbal and fruit teas. That one's called Bellini and one's called Cosmo. They are very, very good.
When
Do
you
you
want to
add
feel fancy. Oh, I guess if you had like iced tea with alcohol, that could be really good.
There's no alcohol in these teas. There's just teas. But
You can add brandy to
That
tea.
is called
Yeah, that's true. And then you have a posset. Oh, a hot toddy.
Yeah.
That's your Nano survival kit.
Yeah, there you go.
Just get
You
drunk.
just want to cry into your mug of tea, add alcohol, and then just keep
Like
it.
Ernest
brandy.
Hemingway style.
Danny recommended cotton candy tea, so they know what's up with non-traditional
Hey.
delicious teas.
Yes.
Have some water in that survival kit.
Yeah.
Also important. See, that's why I like my
Hydrated.
Cosmo and Bellini ones, because it makes me drink more water. It's just slightly fruit flavored.
That's true. That
Have
is
like a
true.
motivational poster or a magnet or something. Or a button. I love pins.
Candy.
Yeah. I just like gather up all my spare change so I can leave the house for writing. Just start like hoarding it away like a dragon. There's just a bunch of quarters under my pillow. Like, these are my coffee shop quarters.
Yes.
You come in and Megan's like sitting on a pile of quarters.
Like, don't touch these. I'm going to go to the coffee shop in November.
The coffee shop is like, oh my gosh, we have so much money. Where's this all coming from?
All
So
quarters.
much change.
Is there like
Chocolate is
investing in
also-
stocks? Like,
Hot chocolate is a good beverage. Catrice was saying also Twinings English breakfast tea from Jody. Yes, Twinings is the superior tea. I will say.
Twinings
I like
Earl
their
Grey
Irish
is the
breakfast
best.
tea.
Yes.
If you don't have a big water bottle, some sort of giant receptacle to drink water from, you should, because drinking water is important. Yeah. Drink more water. Especially during November.
I need that lecture. I consume all my liquid through tea.
There are worse ways to consume it.
Yeah.
True.
I have a coworker who just drinks like 6 cups of coffee a day, and that's it. So
I have so many writer friends who just drink Diet Coke. I don't know why, but like
so gross.
I know it's
Diet sodas are gross.
They are.
So
Diet
many of
sodas are
them
gross.
do. So many of them do. It's weird.
Huh.
I don't know why. Those fantasy writers. I don't know why.
Oh, this is an interesting question. I don't know if you guys will know this off the top of your head, but Helen asked, what's the most words you've ever written for Nano? Highest word count in a day?
Oh,
I don't want to know what
The
Kelly's
Nano website actually
is.
tells you that.
Really?
Mine is 4,001 words, and it was last year.
Ooh.
That's the most I've ever written in a day, period, not just in Nano. People who get these like 20K days, I don't understand.
I know.
4,000, I was like, yes!
I don't know how anyone does 20K in it. I wrote 9,000. That's my highest all-time record, and I had to ice my wrists. I don't know how anyone does like 10 or 20 in a day.
The answer is usually dictation.
Oh, that makes
I think
sense.
the highest I've ever done is like 12K.
That's
Um,
what Nano
so
says
much.
too.
But for me during Nano, the highest I've ever done is 7,800.
That's a
I've
lot.
never had one of my 10K days during November, which
I think I was trying to go for a 10K day when I did 9, and then I think my wrist just quit on me as far as I remember.
I have a feeling that a lot of Megan's 10K days are in Octobers when she's trying to finish a manuscript.
probably like I gotta finish this.
I feel like that's when you do them.
Yeah. I think the most I've ever written in a Nano, I'm always real close to the 50,000. Yeah, 5181, 5136, and 5174.
Nice.
Last year, my Nano says 5087, but I know I wrote more than that day. But it was like once I hit 50,000, I validated, and then I wrote like another like couple thousand or something after that to finish the book, because I was like at the end of the book. I was like, I'm finishing this.
This says I wrote Mortality at 80,000 words in 2012 during Nano, so I guess I did that.
Yeah.
Mortality is
I don't
out.
remember
You
that at
can
all.
read that.
Very cool.
Should print that out and frame it on the wall.
Mhm.
Sign it. Autograph it yourself.
And hang it on her own wall.
Yeah.
Kelly from Kelly.
All my love. Best regard.
We had a question from random person. Am I allowed to start Nano early, or is that cheating? So
The Nano police will come for you.
Yes to both, I guess.
yeah. Technically, the Nano thing is you start the new project on day 1 and you go to 50K, but they aren't going to ask you if you did that when you validate your words or anything. All that matters is that you've written 50,000 words.
I personally don't count anything I've written before the
Yeah.
month starts. So like last year, I had already written like 20K, and then I wrote 50K during the month and like finished the book at like 70 something. And like this year, I've already got about 30, or I think like 25. But I won't be counting that part, because I feel like that would totally be cheating. But I was like, I already have 25K on day 1. I only have to write another 25,000.
I judge people who I see that. I'm like, you did not. Because there's always that person who's like, look at my chart. I'm already halfway there. I'm like, I don't believe you.
I like start like a new Google Doc for November with just the parts I've written in November, so that I can like track how much that word count is, because I don't want to have to highlight it every time. So yeah, I just start like a Nano file, and then I add all that to the other document when I'm done.
Yeah. We follow up on that. What if I don't want to post my book online because I'm so paranoid someone will steal it? Do I have to be officially a Nano writer? They don't keep your book. It's just a word count checker. They don't save it. They don't publish it anywhere.
You don't write on the Nano site.
Yeah, you don't write on the Nano site. Technically, no one's gonna know if you just copy the first page like 100 times into the validator. Like if you are really worried that they're somehow saving it, like you could do that. Like say you wrote 50,000 words and you just want to copy and paste something that is not your book into the 50K validator, they aren't gonna know.
Yeah, the book
There's
doesn't
also-
get posted online or anything.
Yeah.
And there's word scramblers. If you Google like NaNoWriMo word count scrambler, that'll give you the same amount of words, but then you have to post it into that, I guess. But there's a lot of ways to do it, but Nano isn't going to take your book.
Yeah.
They're not putting it up for other people to read.
Yeah.
And no one else can get access.
We had a question from Flautist58. Is there any secret to high word count days, or is it just a butt in chair thing? I don't want it to be a butt in chair thing, but it probably is.
Yes, it is.
To an extent, because like you can prepare and like you're telling your friends and family that this day I am unavailable. You are preparing your meals, writing in whatever place. Like you can increase your chances of success by like doing a little legwork ahead of time and like getting in the right headspace, getting snacks ready.
I think
But
for me-
mostly button chair. But
Outline the chapters you're going to write that day or something
Yes,
if you haven't
I was
already.
gonna say,
That
yeah,
helps.
I would not get a high word count done if I didn't know where I was going with it. So, I mean, it depends if that would be big for if you're a pantser or plotter.
Yeah, I am a big fan of sitting down the night before and figuring out like, is it a 10K day I'm going for? Is it a 5K day? And how many chapters approximately is that gonna be for me? So if it's a 10K day, that's probably like 5 or 6 chapters. And so then I sit down and really figure out, okay, what's gonna happen in like detail in the next 5 or 6 chapters. So I'll usually write like a couple paragraphs for each one. Like this is gonna happen and then this is gonna happen. And then I keep that on like a piece of paper next to me, and I typically leave my house for it because there's too many fun distractions at my house. So I'll go to the coffee shop or the library or wherever, and lots of water, lots of snacks packed, and not just fun-sized candy bars because it's Halloween or whatever. Pretty much just gearing up like you're preparing for the apocalypse and going for it. We've been going for an hour now, so we'll probably call it. We are going to be talking about Nano every week in November. We do virtual write-ins every Sunday of November. And you will also be seeing us again this year on the NaNoWriMo channel. We're going to be hosting some write-ins over there. We've got dates for that, but we'll probably do a full video releasing the dates. Yeah.
makes sense.
That's a good idea.
So we'll do
Sounds like
that
a thing we'd
in
do.
the next week or two.
Instead of making people watch an hour-long video to figure out the
Yeah,
Yeah.
to find out dates and times. I'm sure NaNoWriMo will also schedule it all on their page. They usually do, so you'll be able to check it out there. If you just YouTube search NaNoWriMo, their channel will come up. It's the Office of Letters and Light. So we're going to be having a lot of write-ins throughout the month. The Nano ones will be at different times too. So if you're watching this later and bummed that this is not a time that typically works for you, we're going to have some other times. So hopefully one of those will work for you, different days as well. And
Also, the first one we're doing, the first Sunday, we're doing a
Oh, yeah.
special timed one. We're doing another very special write-in with For the Words to kick off Nano. So on November 4th, I think we're going to start writing at 4 p.m. And we're going for 4 hours. So there will be lots and lots of time to catch us then.
yes,
Really, November is just going to be a great month for us being online all the time.
yes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that 4-hour For the Words theme chat is going to have tons of prizes again, just like the last one we did. We're going to have special guests. It's going to be a great month.
Super looking forward to it.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Also, in housekeeping things, we are now 2 weeks out from our book club, right?
Right.
3 weeks?
Mm,
2 weeks? 2 weeks away from our book club. We are reading Furthermore by Tahira Mafi this month, so definitely get on that so we can all be a book club together.
Such a good book.
Random person asked what time. Yes, Eastern time for. It's generally what we say things in, but we'll put all of that in the video of like exactly when it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. But we are on this channel every week, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be here every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, doing write-ins in November. Next week, our chat is on something. It has a topic.
Next week. Keep talking 1 second.
Next week is gonna be
Antagonists.
Antagonists, yes.
Ooh.
Yes. So excited. I finished
Halloween chat.
Vengeful and I'm like, I'm so ready for this.
So be sure to join us next week talking antagonists. Best of luck preparing for NaNoWriMo. And if you want more videos on prepping for NaNoWriMo, we have them on our channel. If you go to WordNerdsVlog.com, we have like big sections of all the videos we've ever done on National Novel Writing Month and Camp NaNoWriMo. So you can definitely check those out if that's your thing. And thank you so much for being here and for all your questions. And we will see you with our daily vlogs and then next week at 7:30. Bye.
Bye, everybody.